Okay, I hope everybody can hear me and see the opening screen here, my PowerPoint presentation. So let me just start with the um, agenda. Well, obviously, the disclaimer first, but that's just something I show every time. If you have trouble seeing this, please let me know. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yep, can hear you.
Okay, great. So this is the agenda. We're going to be talking in more detail about some of these things. I know that there was some comments at a recent meeting regarding developers versus residents and the township. We have the Goodnoe Homestead Project. I got some survey results from that. The Mélange Michigas, which I think means more or less mess in Yiddish, and I'll get into that. Um, Talk about the sewer authority settlement with Jim Worthington and what happens next. And a few slides on pedestrian and traffic safety updates. Uh, we got the Chandler Hall crosswalk, Fountain Farm Lane parking problem, Summit Trace crosswalk, and we have Carla Jones, I think, is here to maybe gives us some more information on that or her comments on that. Uh, there's a little road work update, maybe. Pollinator Garden is a community planting event in Roberts Ridge Park coming up. The Little League, the Council Rock North Athletic Association asked for some help in getting running water to the fields in Veterans Park for Little League. There's native plant mandate changes to the land saldo, what's called a saldo. I'll get into that a little bit and maybe give you a little preview of the supervisors meeting coming up on Wednesday. And after that, we can open it up for a discussion of anything that you like to talk about. But just a quick review of the last meeting on September 10th, and we'll get into some of these issues in here. But there was a ceremony honoring Fire Chief Glenn Forsythe, who's been um, hired by Newtown for 50 years, I think. 50 years of service. That's a pretty long time. Um, Also, the Chandler Hall crosswalk, we're going to talk about the tug of war with the resident who expressed concern about overdevelopment. He may be here tonight as well. Um, and the Newtown Bagel expansion. Now, I have a little, what do you call this? This this diagram here, QR code. I just started this series called the Deep Dive podcasts, and this is something that's created by Google's AI program, and it's really, really fascinating. You should listen to this. What I do is I give it the audio of the entire meeting, and it creates this 15, 20 minute podcast. But anyway, I'll tell you more about that later. But talking about the tug of war, this is something that started with resident Bradley Cooper, who you see here, who made a comment at the last meeting, where he essentially said that developers don't care about us. And he specifically brought up a couple of projects that we'll talk about and in the next couple of slides. And specifically, he was talking about this development, this proposed development by uh, Goodnoe Homestead LLC, which is really Jim Worthington. I I assume everybody knows who Jim Worthington is. He is the owner of the Newtown Athletic Club, and he has other property on North Sycamore Street. So this is what he is proposing for the corner where of North Sycamore Street and Silo Drive across from the Green Parrot. Uh, it's a pretty large, say, mixed use. It has residential units, and on the ground floor, it has these retail outlets. Actually, those retail outlets are 2 stories high. So what you see here is one apartment above the um, retail use. But in any case, it's a project that's looking for multiple zoning uh, relief. For example, the building exceeds 40 feet in height, which is something that is a problem for perhaps the fire department in trying to reach upper floors. It has less parking spaces per unit, where, for example, has 1.58 parking spaces per unit. It's in the back of these buildings. I'm not going to show you that, but the ordinance in Newtown calls for 3 off-street parking spaces per unit. Um, Also, it's something I don't understand. It only has 3% or so of the building is designated for non-residential use, whereas the ordinance really calls for, when you're mixing these things, 40 to 50% for each use, commercial versus residential. So it's asking for a lot of variances to the zoning, and it has to go through this whole process. This was just presented to the supervisors only, I believe, at this point. And it would have to go before the planning commission and eventually through the zoning hearing board. But meanwhile, I did a survey of over 300 people. Mostly were Newtown residents, and you can see some of the concerns. And this is just a chart that lays out how people feel, what the main concerns were, because the survey then only asked if they were oppose strongly somewhat, or whether they were in favor or somewhat in favor. It asked them for comments, and this chart shows you what their comments were, what their concerns were. Obviously, you got traffic and congestion, parking, and loss of character in the history base, and also over development, density, that sort of thing. And this was some of the issues that Mr. Cooper had raised in his comments to the Board of Supervisors at the last meeting. So the majority of these survey respondents were strongly opposed to this. Now, of course, this is not a scientific survey, but I think it just really does reflect what a lot of people uh, consider about this proposed project. Next is the Melange, Louisiana Italian restaurant. I don't understand that. I don't know how many Italians are in Louisiana, but sounds interesting. The only thing is, the restaurant is on North Sycamore Street, again, across the street from the Green Parrot. And it used to be the Sycamore Grill, I believe. And it's in the historic district, basically. And so it has to comply, it has to be authorized by the Historic Architectural Commission. And they originally went before the Harb, that's called a Harb, and they said they were only going to do four of these windows, and they said it was only going to be in the upper, the Harb members were led to believe it was only going to be in the upper pane. These windows are two-pane windows, which is what needs to be maintained according to Harb. And then they came back to a second meeting with Harb. They came back all of a sudden, and now they have seven windows with basically it's with etching, and they took out the double pane windows, and these is just a single pane window. Then there's questions of whether this etching is the etching of the sycamore tree, which they said they spent $100,000 on these seven etchings and installed them already. And the question is another question is whether these are business signs or not. And only two signs are allowed per business in anywhere in Newtown. And there's problems with the historic nature and what's allowed and so on. So there's lots of problems, and some of these problems are, I mean, caused by the applicant, basically, who did not come to the Harb with the exact um, details and specifications. And so Harb asked them to come back with those details and specs. And frankly, I don't know how long this is going to take to be resolved. They first would have to go back to Harb. Harb would have to say, okay, this is okay for you're complying with the historic district as far as we know. Uh, and then they have to determine, and they still have to go to the zoning hearing board from determine if those etchings, if they're still in the window, if seeing through the windows, it's just a mess. It's a mishigas. I'm sorry, I got to use that term. And hopefully they go through the process rather than asking for permission after opening, asking for forgiveness after opening. They need to ask for permission that they're complying with all the ordinances and historic requirements before they open. Hopefully they'll do that.
Hey, John, quick question for you.
Yeah,
Are there any actual ordinances in question in that case?
ordinance regarding signage. Yes, there are specific ordinances where each business is only allowed two signs to be displayed. Um, so each one of these etchings on six or seven windows
Mhm.
might be considered a sign. That's still something that needs to be determined. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I'm not sure if there's some other ordinances. They had a cease and desist because they started to do work. They removed uh, things from the site before they had permission to do that. I don't know if that's an ordinance or if it's something with the historic district. If they're removing, things that were there, like a bar in the back of the restaurant. It's, I don't know. Anyway, it's a Michigas. I think a lot of people would agree to that
Mm.
characterization. And hopefully it could be worked out. And, we'll see when they will be able to open. The next item is about the sewer authority. I mean, maybe somebody here, I don't know, who is been working against the sewer authority, and I've been involved with this for a little while. And the land at the sewer, there was supposed to be a new sewer treatment plant in Lower Silver Lake Road, down the road from Wawa. And that land was owned by Mr. Worthington and his real estate partners. And that land was taken over by eminent domain by this Newtown Sewer Authority and NBCJMA, which is the uh, Newtown Bucks Community Joint Municipal Authority. I just called it Sewer Authority. So originally, the Sewer Authority paid Mr. Worthington 9.5 million. Mr. Worthington took them to court saying this was not a fair market value, and it was a additional 2 million was awarded to him. So now this has been resolved. The question is, will Mr. Worthington buy it back? He has the option to purchase it back at the same price. Uh, so I'm not sure where it is, if that's happening or not, if he's interested or not in doing that, because now he's got an interest in North Sycamore Street. But say Mr. Worthington does buy it back, then will the sewer authority lower the rates that it raised to in the first place? So it raised the rates by 47%. And primarily that rate increase was to pay for the loan, the interest on the loan to buy that land. Uh, and like I always say, the price of eggs went up, but they really didn't go back down to where they were before. And I don't think, my personal opinion is that they will never lower the rates. But suppose Mr. Worthington does not buy it back, then what happens with the land? Now that the sewer authority has paid needs an extra $2 million, will it raise the rates again to cover for that increased expense? Or could it restart the halted sewer treatment plant project? The sewer treatment project hasn't officially been declared dead. It was just halted. And this may be just a legal requirement because it was before it was a suit filed against it. But can the project be canceled? And my question is, should the land be donated to the township to be preserved as open space? Because frankly, in my opinion, I don't think they'll ever reduce the rates. So the township residents are already, and the borough are already paying for it through the rate increase. And this all remains to be seen. Um, so the
It-
next meeting of the sewer authority will be on October 14th. If you're interested in going and asking them questions about this.
is there a reason that that body doesn't meet in the evenings?
No, not really. There's
Just to cynically, just to keep from people that actually work from being able to attend.
Well, you could take that cynical point of view, and I might agree with you, but they're saying some of the people are working and can't, or I'm not sure why, basically.
Fair enough.
But there were some residents who requested that they have the meeting in the evening hours, and one new member of their board, Dennis Fisher, who is also a Newtown supervisor, requested that at the last meeting. So we'll see. Perhaps they will change the time to be in the evening. Remains to be seen. Did I skip something here?
Yep,
Yes.
that one.
Okay. Now we come to the traffic and pedestrian safety. Mostly pedestrian safety. We had at the last board meeting people from the Chandler Hall, which you know is down on South Sycamore Street, and they have two properties. They have the Chandler Hall on one side and this Len Rock Apartments on the other side. And they also have a little YMCA facility over there. So they need to cross this street, both the patients, the personnel, and the food is created in Chandler Hall that has to be delivered across the street. So uh, residents like Laura Lee Stuckey urged that there be more activated flashing lights like those near the Green Parrot at this crosswalk. And she actually submitted a petition with over 100 signatures. By the way, you see that paper there? You can hardly read it. I mean, it's just people who sign their name. But you know what? I handed that over to ChatGPT, and it actually read it and gave me the names of the people. It's amazing. I don't know what I did without that program, but I was able to get the more readable list of names and submit them to the Board of Supervisors instead of the Board of Supervisors, having to read these handwritten names. Any case, just an interesting aside. Mr. Whitman, who is the CEO of Chandler Hall, was also there and said that the flashing lights that are there now, they're like the overhead lights, they just flash all the time. They're kind of dull, and people have gotten used to it. It's not as effective as the ones you see at the Green Parrot, Silo Drive, and North Sycamore Street, which when they're flashing, you can't miss them. So um, they would be much better, much safer. So at the meeting, Ellen Snyder said the township engineer will review the issue and possibly with a traffic study to begin identifying solutions. The board still has to agree to that before the township could start spending money hiring their engineers to do that kind of study.
Does a traffic study like that actually evaluate the pedestrian traffic?
Well, it should. We can get into that a little bit in the summit trace issue, which comes up a couple of slides from now, where they did such a study, and maybe Carla can tell us a little bit more about that. But uh, did I skip ahead? Going to hello? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. Summit trace. Sorry. Summit Trace. This has been going on for a while. The RVE is the Remington Vernick. They're our township engineers who have did a crosswalk study. Now, they did determine, I believe, how often pedestrians may be using this crosswalk basically to get from the Newtown Gate community over to the Summit Square Shopping Center. Now, the uh, Newtown Gate did put in a additional path leading up to the crosswalk. You can click on a button to change the light, but there's no real flashing lights and stuff like that. Um, so the engineers submitted this study to PennDOT. PennDOT is in charge of okaying anything to be done like at this crosswalk, for example, by adding those flashing lights and doing other things to make it safer. So there were uh, the engineers, this is all I'm getting from the report from the engineers. They met with PennDOT in August, and two options were discussed, or several options. One was leaving the crosswalk in the current condition, removing or modifying the crosswalk. So I'm not sure where they are in this process. Um, they are supposed to be working together to get more information about each option to get further feedback from PennDOT. And so far, there has not been any further feedback from PennDOT, according to the notes from the engineers. Um, so maybe a caller can give her comments on this at the discussion section. I think Carla's still on the line. Are you there, Carla?
I'm here. Good evening, everyone. I would tell you that I live in Summits, so I live across the street. And what continues to astonish me is how people will come from Double Woods Road. They'll make a turn onto to Double Woods Road or Heather. Yeah, they'll on the Summit to get ready to cross over. And they just that far right road, they don't even stop. They just they just turn on there and they've created a third lane. It's not even a lane, but they've created a third lane. And in the official turning lane, they often hang over the box that's in the middle of the intersection with it over on our side. Um, so I just don't, I just think it's a matter of time, before it concerns me that someone's going to get hit. The third lane, that third right lane, is really becoming a standard. It's not a lane, but they're using it as such. And people just will really not abide by the law. And so it's still a great concern to me. It's to me, one block down, Wawa has what I'm talking about. So it's not like I'm trying. This tremendous idea. It's just bring the same thing they did for Wawa up to us. That's all it
Hmm.
is. And then again, and fixing that third right lane is a big piece of that because that's really, I think, a safety issue because that far right lane is right where the people also cross over from Newtown into Langhorne and vice versa.
Well, I think you're talking more about on the Middletown side of the crosswalk by where there's no official left-hand turn. Is that what you're talking about there?
There's no
Or right,
official, no
right.
official right-hand turn.
No
Yeah.
official right-hand turn, and it could be a dangerous situation.
The
It's
thing
not
about it is,
shown in this illustration in this photo here.
yeah, John, I think it's important to note that that property right there is Newtown, as my
Yeah.
understanding. So
Well,
that property, that's what Middletown Township, I think, starts a little bit after the entrance of that, where that there's, yeah.
yeah, that's gets into a little bit of he said, she said, or something like that. You know, uh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure where myself, I'm not a surveyor, so that must be something that is being discussed between PennDOT and the engineers, but we haven't been able to get a clear answer on that specific question. The engineer, I'm told, will be at the meeting this Wednesday, and perhaps I can bring this up again with her to see, what's going to be, what's going on with this uh, study and discussions with PennDOT. So that's about all I can say about that.
I'll put that down my calendar, John.
All right.
I would
See.
like, yeah, just I'd like to, because I did speak with her before, and I just the idea of leaving the crosswalk in its current condition when really there's no official right turn. And people just created this lane, and one block down is a much better arrangement, fully, signaled and crosswalk and flashing lights and timers and and why we can't have the same thing one block up. I think it would want to be a standard, I would think.
Well, I think the people at Newtown Gate would like that to be able to walk to the supermarket over there and so on.
Right. I think it would open up both sides for Newtown and for Middletown Township. We both have great restaurants. We both have, great shops. It'd be great. And I would really like it to be able to do that and safely. I come out of that development all the time. It's where I live. And I'm always watching these cars turn right, and I'm watching by people ride their bicycles while people are turning right. And I'm just like holding my breath. So I will definitely put it on my calendar for Wednesday night. It starts at 7 o'clock, John.
7 o'clock, there's public comments almost and immediately after that, the beginning of the meeting. So
Yeah, I like how they do that, by the way. I think that's very nice.
yeah, it's better in the beginning than have people wait till the end.
I mean, truly, I think it's very thoughtful.
Yeah. I'm glad we're able to keep that. The road paving program, this is about all that's publicly available about the schedule. It looks a little bit behind. I asked the township manager today, and he said the contractor is expected to begin milling and paving next week. So I don't know if your road is on this list or not. And I had reviewed all the roads in a previous Meet Mac Monday. If you need that information, I could get it to you about your road. You probably know if your road's on this list already. The Roberts Ridge Pollinator Garden. This is something that has been in the works for a while. It's going to be where the community has planted these trees already in one section of this park. And they've already treated the grass with a special vinegar solution that kills the turf. You have to get rid of all that grass before you can plant these little pollinator plants. They have a whole hundreds of these. I don't know how many, over 200 maybe. And they're asking the community to come and help. It's very easy. All you need is a trowel and some gloves and maybe some water. You got DK Landscaping will provide volunteers and uh, do some post-planting watering. And Wawa is going to come over with bottles of water and pretzels, uh, bread and water, right? Typical person's menu. But any case, it's a good idea. And it's going to be October 4th and 5th. And you need to sign up, and that's what that KR, whatever it's called, that Q
QR.
QR code is supposed to help you do. And by the way, I'm going to distribute this whole presentation to everybody afterwards. And in the notes, there's much more information and links that are easier to use than QR codes, maybe. Looking ahead to the meeting on this Wednesday, there's not much on there, but maybe there'll be some interesting public comments from Carla and others. I don't know. I'm just showing you that there's going to be a report from the Planning Commission, and the next couple of slides are going to get into these two developments. And just a formal resolution is going to be signed with Newtown Borough to go ahead with the work that needs to be done to start this creek bridge, which goes across Newtown Creek, starting at Frost Lane in the borough over to Durham Road, North Sycamore Street in the township, if you can envision that. And today I just noticed that the borough is creating a sidewalk down one side of Frost Lane for easier access by some residents in the borough and to get to the bridge instead of walking in the street. Unfortunately, that can't be done on the uh, Newtown Township side of Frost Lane because I don't think there's room for sidewalks there. But in any case, it should be easier for residents to get to this bridge. I had also talked about this bridge in a former Meet Mac Monday, so I'm not going to get into detail of that here. The two things that are here at the meeting, as in the report from the Planning Commission, is this property on 211 Upper Silver Lake Road. Um, this is 5.1 acres split into single-family homes. Uh, they're again looking for some kind of relief uh, about installing certain sidewalks and handicap ramps at intersections, uh, claiming that pedestrians don't use this that much anyway. I don't know, but the planning commission recommended that the sidewalks be put in there, be required, and otherwise the plan should be approved by the township when it comes time for the township to get involved, the Board of Supervisors, which will not be at this Wednesday meeting. We're just hearing the report, asking questions. The other one has to do with the mini storage facility where the old TD Bank used to be. It still is the building is still there, but this is going to be a new storage facility across diagonally across the bypass from Wawa on Newtown Yardley Road and Upper Silver Lake Road. The main issue comes with this caretaker apartment, uh, but which is not really permitted in this zone, the LI zone. Um, You might have heard about an overlay in this zone regarding mixed use. That's where you have retail on the bottom floor and apartments above it. This is not a mixed use. This is an apartment that's, instead of a storage unit, there'll be an apartment where this caretaker and maybe his family, her family, would be living. So the planning commission was a little bit divided on this and recommended that uh, the township take no stand on this issue of not obeying the zoning with regard to the apartment. I'm not quite so sure how I would vote on this, but what happens is before it goes to eventually to the zoning hearing board to decide, but the board of supervisors, the township could be a party to the case or just send a letter saying we oppose this because of the apartment, or we don't care, or not do anything. So the planning commission said not, we shouldn't take any position on that apartment. And they said that it was, the people who voted for it said that it might be good to improve the, uh, maintenance and safety. Um, I don't know if I would be afraid to be living in this big building, especially with my family. I mean, it doesn't look like an ideal place to have an apartment, but we'll see what happens with that. Next, we have a problem in Fountain Farm Lane, which is in the Newtown Walk community. People might be familiar with that. I drive through there a lot when I'm going to Giant and going across that intersection we were just talking about. A resident there complained about the cars being illegally parked, as you can see here. They're parked over the fog line, and according to, I guess, state law, you have to be with all four wheels have to be within that fog line. Uh, and obviously, these are not. And sometimes what could happen is that traffic would have to go around them and go impinge on the other side of the street and may lead to some kind of accident. But the main consideration of some of the residents here was regard to speeding on Fountain Farm Lane, which does not really have many or even any speed signs. Well, it does. I think it does. It's 25 miles per hour. But you know, when you're traveling 25 miles per hour, there's nobody, everybody behind you is right up, you know what, trying to push you ahead to go faster. So people do tend to speed there, especially because they might want to make that light to go across the intersection to shop at the Giant or whatever, or get on the bypass. So the residents requested improved traffic enforcement, more speed signage, and so on. And I've lately have seen at least one car getting a parking ticket, and the police department has deployed a speed board there to show people what speed they're actually traveling at, and that is said to help people realize that maybe they should be going slower. We'll see what happens with that. The next thing is about the Little League, the Council Rock North Athletic Association, which I hadn't realized they spent so much money in maintaining the fields at Veterans Park for the Little League. So we had Mr. Pasconi come to our meeting and making a plea for helping them get water access to the fields there. Now, why do they need water access? It's not to water the grass, it's to water the infield, especially when the ground is hard. They feel that hitting line drives or ground balls that could bounce higher off of the hard infield might injure players by, you know, bouncing up into their faces, that sort of thing. So what they tend to do is want to water these fields down before play and helping improve the safety. And for them to do this, they need some kind of a line attached to the main water supply from the township. And they had a quote for doing this, and it's called a water. They need a water meter connection. They want $10,000 to do that connection, and they'll handle the rest, which would cost them an additional 15,000 to get the water to the fields from that meter. So Mr. Pasconi is here. Maybe he could say a few words about that,
No,
DJ.
absolutely. And I have two questions after that for you, John, real fast. But yeah, like you said, Brett DeAndre, who's also on the line, and I came out to the supervisors meeting, and it's vital that we get this water running in Veterans Park so that we can water all three of those baseball fields there. We invest just a normal upkeep in excess of $10,000 over at Vets every season. We are planning to do some refurbishment, some extensive refurbishment to two of those fields this off season. But if we don't have the water to those fields, the lifespan of those refurbishments reduces dramatically. You're talking about, maybe every 3 to 5 years. And Brett, you can chime in. I know you're more in tune to those numbers than I am. to, every one or two seasons, we're having to invest even significantly more money into these fields. We don't ask the township really for anything. We self-maintain these fields. We invest in these fields as well as Chandler Fields and Newtown Elementary School field every season to make sure the kids have a safe playing environment. We take pride in these fields.
So thank you for coming here and helping us understand the situation. Um, at the meeting, Ms. Schneider said it's on the budget for next year. She promised.
Oh, yeah. So my question to you is when as supervisors do you receive the 2026 budget? And then also, what is the fiscal year for the township? Is it January 1 or is it
Yeah,
you guys operate differently?
it's on the year, January 1 through the
Okay.
31st. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not sure. Usually they hold it up almost to the last minute. Hopefully there'll be something in October. Unfortunately, the process begins with the supervisors getting a draft of the budget. Maybe there'll be a public meeting where the different heads of departments will come in and express what they need, and that may be part of the budget or put into the budget. But the
Okay.
draft budget at that point, it may be sometime in October. I'm not sure. But that draft budget is not made public. So until the supervisors actually vote to advertise the approved budget, at least one version of it, they could still make some changes, up to 10%, something like that. Uh,
Okay.
so that might come in November, after the election, probably. Uh, anyway, so that's from past experience. That's been my idea of my understanding of when these things might happen.
I appreciate that information, John, because we as a Council Rock Newtown organization were kind of in the dark as to what that process looked like and the timing of it. So thank you for giving me some insight
And
to that.
I'm not so much in the light myself, so
Well, it's more, you gave us more than we knew.
all right. Just keep in touch and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
Okay, saldo, which is a landscape ordinance for new developments. They have to follow these regulations and rules. And so the engineer has been instructed to make some edits, and they have to do mostly with the native plants, what we're calling a native plant mandate, that 100% of any plants that are put into new developments have to be 100% native plants. And then there's other information about the other requirements about banning invasive cultivars. I'm not exactly sure what all this means, but that's hybrids, and I don't know if there's anybody here who is a specialist in this area, but they did have somebody from I believe, the Bucks County Planning Commission who was a specialist helping our township planning engineer, Michelle Fountain, come up with a red line version of changing this saldo. So um, we'll have yet to see this and approve it, uh, and make it public. So it's got a little bit way to go. Again, I did create a deep dive podcast entitled Beyond the Bush based on the presentation that this Bucks County, uh, you know, uh, uh, expert made in front of the Planning Commission. I forget exactly when this was, earlier this month. And it created this tremendous podcast that I think you should listen to. Speaking of which, I just want to end on showing you some of the podcasts based on audio. I mean, what I do is, I go to these meetings. Sometimes I might have a little bit of hearing problem, but if I put my phone on to record it, my phone hears everything for me. And then I feed it into this program by Google called Notebook LM, and it creates these great 10, 15-minute audio podcasts. It's like two people talking to each other. It's not, it's it's really pretty cool, and I urge you to kind of listen to these and hopefully give me some feedback on it. It's really interesting. So that's really the presentation, and as I said, I would hand these out by email. I'll give you the link to it where you can download it. And I'm sorry it took so long to get through that presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any questions and comments, now's the time. You can unmute yourself and just go at it. Anybody? Come on. All right.
I guess I was asking questions earlier, so I guess I'll just
This is
continue on that. Yes,
Michael.
this is Mike
Yeah,
Saragman.
right.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about the Goodnoe property that development plan. I mean, I know you mentioned there's a whole host of zoning requirements. I'm kind of curious, like how do those zonings, they seem relatively arbitrary. Like how are those zoning rules established and why are they there?
Well, I guess every township has some regulations regarding what kinds of buildings, for example, the building height has all to do with the safety in case of a fire. And if your engine company doesn't have ladders long enough, that could be a problem. Parking, if you don't have space for all the residents to park, they're going to start parking on the street, and that may impinge businesses who might, need street parking for their business. There's not a lot of parking spaces in Newtown. There's no big parking building, that kind of thing. But if you listen to the podcast, it's really interesting. They get into, yes, there's a history of ordinances that were created a long time ago,
Mhm.
and some of these regulations may not still be appropriate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
so there is that, and that is why there are, um, the zoning hearing board allows some people to not fully to give them variances so that they can not be hobbled by certain ordinances. And they do this especially for private landowners, and sometimes, if they're 2 or 3 feet beyond where they should be by
mhm,
building a shed, they may let them get away with it. So that's what the role of the zoning hearing board is. And unfortunately, not too many people go to the zoning hearing board meetings to listen to all the details about
mhm,
why this is given a variance and why that's not given a variance. So some people are more like sticklers for sticking with the variances, with the ordinances. And I'll give you an example of the window, the signage for businesses.
right.
You've seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life, where the township is taken over by that meanie guy. What's his name? I forget his name.
It's been a while.
Yeah, they're all out there drinking, and every business has got bought lots of signs, and nobody's, there's no more rules or regulations, and it looks terrible, right? So that may be the intent of the signage, but it came up with the
Worst belt.
Borscht Belt, right?
Mhm.
That here's what they did. They did not ask for a permit to put in this neon sign in the window. So first of all, there's an ordinance against neon signs. Why? Again, you go back to the Christmas story. You don't want all these flashing lights. It looks tacky, maybe. Okay, it's maybe not appropriate for a new town to have lots of neon signs, except those signs that say open, in the doorway, that's okay. That doesn't count. But to have a sign that advertises something about the business, a neon sign is not permitted. Aside from that, say it wasn't a neon sign, it was so they changed it to diodes
Yeah,
or something,
LEDs, yeah.
or something like that. It still was in violation because they had more than two, or they did not ask for a permit, and they had to give it up. All right. They said enough is enough. And there was lots of discussion about that. And, I felt by looking at some of the other businesses around there, like the bookstore, has had used to have a lot of signage in the window about here's a new book, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Now they all those businesses received notifications that they're in violation. And practically the only one that changed the signage, if you look at what's the place that does the Quiznos or whatever that is, I forget.
Primo.
They have multiple signs in the window. But the bookstore obeyed the rules and does not. And they were pretty pissed off about it. Nobody else is obeying this. So my issue is, well, if you're going to do this, you have to apply it to everybody. Everybody has to be part of it. Otherwise, you're being discriminatory. And this is where the Borscht Belt came in. Yes, it may have been discriminatory. And, this is something you don't want to see. And now the Melange is a little different situation. They did not use neon signs. They did not think that the um, etchings in the window were business signs.
Hmm.
Other people may disagree with that, and I don't know how that would work out with the zoning hearing board. But what they didn't do, they weren't truthful. They didn't come to Harb with what they were actually doing, namely replacing the double hung windows. Now, this is the issue with the historic district, that the windows need to be the way they always were, double hung. Now, should they be? I don't know. A historic district usually means you have to preserve what's been there, the nature of it. And you can have different opinions on that, but to be kind of lied to or misled, because the Harb was misled by, they thought the etchings were going to be in a double hung window, but the etchings would be at the top pane of that double hung window. That wasn't the case. And they had all these windows covered up so you couldn't see them. So they were trying to really get away with something, in my opinion. And then when they came back to Hob, they said, oh, it wasn't. They originally said there's going to be four windows. And now they came back and said, well, there's really seven windows. And, it's like they said, oh, we didn't mean to misrepresent, but I'm not quite sure about that. And which leads me to believe that, hell, they're going to open up regardless without permission from the zoning hearing board. They first need to have a permit to open. And right now, that's going to be denied to them. So can they open without a permit? Well, I don't know. I've never seen that, but we'll see what happens with that.
Mm.
But, you know, ordinances can change, but it takes a long time to do that. really painstaking process. For example, we have an ordinance about billboards. And that has taken a couple of years because it has to go through 3 townships, not just Newtown, because we are a group. I don't want to get into that too much, but the Newtown was specified to be have certain businesses, whereas Wrightstown was not. And in order to satisfy the need of every developer, you need to have certain things. And developers could sue us if we don't allow billboards somewhere.
Hmm.
So we had to rewrite the ordinance to allow billboards, but it's not going to be allowed in Upper Makefield. No, it's only going to be allowed in Newtown. And it's already allowed in one part of Wrightstown on the road 413 going up. I guess it's the auto dealership um, billboard sign. So I can't still figure out where the billboards are going to be in Newtown, but it was made so uh, unpractical that there probably won't be any billboards in Newtown. There was a billboard at the shopping center, where Iron Hill is, and
Hmm.
it was a big orange sign on Durham Road that was advertising
Space available? Is that what it was?
which way, Brixmore, Brixmore
Yes,
development
it means it was advertising that there was space available, right?
space
Something that,
available, right?
yeah.
And the part of it, what made it a billboard, these are not called billboards anymore. They're called off-site signage. So in other words, you can't have off-site signage in unless it's in one very, very specific area. And it's certainly not over there. And so I complained about it because this was unsightly, a big orange sign, and it was not on their property. And they had to remove it. Similarly, on North Sycamore Street, by the building across from the Gurus, there used to be a billboard type sign advertising another property in the borough, around the block, around the corner. So that was an off-site sign, and you'll see if you go by there, it is now covered. So it's not a sign anymore. It's not an off-site sign. So this has been going on for 2 years to change that ordinance to allow for it. Anyway,
You know,
the
I guess my interest is like, and the unfortunate part with developments like this, like I'm one that like I'm looking for a town that grows and develops and is dynamic and has new businesses coming in, and I for one would like to see a development like this take over the eyesore that is on on that corner right now, because that homestead is a very, you know, I'd say it's a very generous description of what that wreck of a property is right now.
you mean the silo and the farmhouse?
Yeah, yeah,
Well, they're going to
it's
stay there.
yeah, all for the better. But at least they'll be hidden. At least they'll be hidden there.
Well,
They'll be
they'll be
obscured. They'll say from the general. And in an area it's underdeveloped, right? There's nothing really on that south of there until you get down to the next development, which is like the where the Abercrombie and Fitch or an
yeah,
Abercrombie, no, not Abercrombie. Oh, what is it? The bike store and the
yeah,
Verizon
yeah.
shop are. I don't know what that center is called, but
That's a mixed use. Yeah, there's apartments above retail over there,
right.
right?
So it's similar type of development than this, right? This looks like maybe a little bit larger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, uh, not too many people would agree with you, but
No, I don't know about that. Just a lot of people wouldn't necessarily come to a meeting.
well, they
It's a silent
answered our
majority,
survey,
John. Well,
huh?
survey who are the people who are the people who are the people that write letters? The people who are against things, right? People who are for things typically aren't the ones that speak out because they're not necessarily I'll say they're not incentivized to do it, right? Those are the
Well,
people that Most of the people that show up to meetings, when do people show up to meetings? Because they oppose something, not because they're for something, but because they were opposed to something.
I'm not quite sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably you're right.
If this is on the agenda and people are opposed to it, and what's the regard? If you did a scientific poll, I tend to think that the proportions would be very different.
All
I
right.
doubt it would be 75-25.
Yeah, I think that's kind of not. I'm not saying it's scientific, but it's how I get information from residents, how I interact with
Sure,
residents.
sure.
It's more about that than being scientific. And so when I get these comments, then I know what to do to ask the right questions. Okay. That sort of thing. Why do you need this setback when, maybe you don't need that? Why do you need the height? Why do you need, you know, this improper mixed use ratio, that kind of thing, uh, to ask the right questions because people have responded to the survey making comments. They're not just voting one way or another, but
Mhm.
what are their concerns? These are people in the township. I mean, whether you think more people would be in favor of this or not, um, there are certain issues, let's say, and you can't ignore the issues. You got to deal with them. If you're a supervisor, you got to take these decisions into account if it's a decision that you have to make. So now, loss of character and the history, you're saying, that's not important. Okay, you know, that could be true. I'm not a big fan of the Goodnoes, but I sort of agree with you that maybe there's something better there. I know there was originally a long time ago a different plan that I thought was not as ambitious as this plan for that site.
Mhm.
So, and what another thing is that this requires, I believe, 192 EDUs. You probably know what an EDU is, right? It,
I do not.
it's an equivalent dwelling unit. It's the
Mhm.
amount of sewage you create. Like
Oh, sure. Mhm.
a single family home is like one EDU. So each of these apartments and the businesses and so on, it added up to 192, maybe something like that, let's say. And currently, EDUs are available only by special request, right? Because you got uh, a system that gets overloaded sometimes when when it's raining. All right.
Mhm.
And it can't handle everything. So when that happens, the overflow goes into the streams, which is not healthy. And now Newtown, really controls where the rainwater goes, but some other towns in this network do not do that. So we have control over that, but we don't have control over the distribution of EDUs. That is decided by the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority.
Mhm.
And that was one of the main reasons why the Newtown Sewer Authority wanted to build a sewage treatment plant to get out of Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority and
Mhm.
do their own ship, sail their own ship or whatever it was.
I thought you was going to use another term.
Yeah. But it had opposition from other residents. But was it really necessary to have that, or is it has something to do with how you manage rainwater? Uh, it's too technical for me, to tell you the truth.
Mhm.
But sometimes I was told at a meeting I went to where the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority made its presentation that sometimes when it rains, 75% of the water that ends up in this what's called the Neshaminy Interceptor, which handles all this sewage from many townships, gets transported down to Philadelphia.
Right.
75% of it comes from the rainwater, not from sewage. So, and that is what's limiting the ability to willy-nilly assign EDUs. Now, you know, the what's this, the
Oh, the Holy Family.
Holy Family wants to build student housing,
Hmm.
which is another, I don't know, 160 EDUs. I may not have the numbers exactly right, but in that order of
Some
magnitude,
number, significant number.
significant number. So, you know, each one is vying for limited availability. And unfortunately, sometimes the availability is more of a political decision than a technical one,
Shocking.
if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
So some of this land is co-owned by certain people who are involved with the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority. Very interesting.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we talk. I know I think one of the things on here is housing and affordability, right? That comes into play too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if the fewer houses we can build, I mean, it's a national problem. It's not just a Newtown problem, right?
Right.
The fewer houses we build, the more expensive existing houses are. It's
Well,
just
yeah.
supply and demand, right?
It doesn't seem to be stopping Toll Brothers. They're selling so much that they withdrew their ads for the new development they're building up there.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of demand,
Yeah.
right? There's a need for more. So that's
Yeah.
that's I mean that's as a resident, I think that's one of the things we should be looking for is how do we allow for more people to move here so that housing can be reasonable.
Well, it's a matter of affordability, building housing that's affordable, and I don't know how to solve that, in this town specifically, but I know that in the overlay district where you have mixed use, that was supposed to be able to have more affordable housing because it's in an area that's, you know, has commercial look and feel to it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And maybe it's more like a town,
Right.
Philadelphia or something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that has yet to come to fruition where anybody is really proposing to do that. So
Well,
that,
I'm sure this Goodnoe is actually a good, I'll call it a precedent.
yeah,
Because
we'll see
if whoever's looking at that, I mean, is going to see if how easily that goes through is an indicator of how easily that next project would go through.
yeah. Well, I probably won't be a supervisor by the time that happens. So I don't have to worry about
Fair
that.
enough. Fair enough. Leave it for the next guy to worry about.
All right. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to end the meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for being here. And as I said, I will deliver by email links to this presentation where you can find much more information. And hopefully, I ask everybody to take a listen to my deep dive podcast because in 10 or 15 minutes, you can learn about what was said at these meetings rather than having to go to the meetings. So I'm making it kind of my business, even after being a supervisor, to go to these meetings and to summarize them in these podcasts. So, you know, hopefully that'll work out and everybody will think it's a good idea. So thanks very much for attending.
Well, thanks for doing this.